FPL chip strategy, double game weeks, blank game weeks, when to play your wild card, when to play your free hit, your bench boost, and triple captain. Now that we are getting towards the end of the season, this is the final way to make big rank gains in your mini leagues, to go and jump over your rivals, to go and get that overall rank gain as well. So today it is finally time to start looking at that chip strategy guide. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes on the video is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I promise I'm not going to talk too much about Eze's haul last night. Of course, he was my transfer in close to the deadline. Massive return, but we're here to talk today about that chip strategy, the blanks and doubles that we're going to have coming up in FPL. Now that we are further forward through the FA Cup, we now have a much clearer roadmap of when the blanks and doubles are likely to fall and who is likely to have a blank and double in those given game weeks. So we can start to think about when to play your triple captain, when to play your bench boost, when to play your wild card, and when to play your free hit. Now, you might think in previous seasons you haven't necessarily planned it, and that is fine. But I have to admit, playing your chips right has such a massive impact on your overall rank and your mini league finishes at the end of the season. If you plan your chips well from game weeks 25 till the end of the season, you will categorically, almost certainly, have a better second half of the season than people who don't. It is very difficult to go and do really well in the end of the season if you don't plan your chips, which is why it is so important. So the reason that I'm recording this video now is the weekend just gone. We've had a round of FA Cup fixtures, which gives us a very clear indication of the big blank of the season, which is likely to be game week 29, which is why we're starting to record now. So we're going to go through. We're going into game week 23 at the weekend, then game week 24, both likely to be very normal game weeks. Game week 25, we've had confirmed as a double game week already for Manchester City and Brentford. We are also still expecting, at time of recording, for that Liverpool-Luton game that's been postponed from game week 26 to still go into game week 25. Of course, it was postponed because game week 26 is the final of the Carabao Cup final, which is why Liverpool, Luton and Chelsea versus Spurs do not have a game in game week 26 because, of course, Liverpool-Chelsea is the Carabao Cup final, so those two teams don't play, and of course, their opponents don't play either. So we are expecting that game to go into game week 25. Now, you might be asking, well, why does it need to go into game week 25? And a little bit more detail for you. Some of you might not care about the reasoning behind it, but some of you might. In theory, if Liverpool's the key team here, if Liverpool get to the sort of final of all the tournaments that they're in, so the Carabao Cup final, of course they're in the final there, the final of the FA Cup, they're through to the next round and have a decent draw in the next round, and the final of the Europa League, which they are favourites to do, they only have 3 free midweeks between now and the end of the season. Those 3 free midweeks come in game week 25, the midweek of game week 34, so we'll talk about game week 34 in a bit more detail, and game week 37. And if they get all that way in their cup competitions, they will have a blank in game week 26, game week 29, and they'll be unable to play in the weekend of game week 34. So that is 3 weekends of football that they will have to have fixtures taken out of, and 3 midweeks that they should go and put that in. Now, in theory, it's possible that the Premier League gamble that Liverpool get knocked out of one of the tournaments and it suddenly frees up a bit more time. But they made a mistake a few years ago where they didn't do it and they didn't bring a fixture forward when they needed to, and it ended up giving Manchester United a triple game week towards the end of the season. They then corrected that mistake last year and brought a fixture forward, and that is why we expect them to do it again. So we do still expect Liverpool versus Luton to go into game week 25. Game week 26, of course, is the blank game week caused by the Carabao Cup final. Game week 29 is the biggest blank of the season. It's the most difficult game week of the season because we're not expecting very many fixtures. We tend to have about 4 or 5, maybe 6 in a good year, fixtures actually take place. So 4 or 5 fixtures get postponed out of the weekend. Now, you're wondering, well, what causes that? That is the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. There is one more round of FA Cup which takes place between game weeks 26 and 27. If the teams get through that round, they will then blank in game week 29. So at the moment, we have the draw. We know what teams are playing who in that round of FA Cup between game week 26 and 27. So we can start to look at percentage chances, right? What percent do I think Manchester City are of beating Luton in the FA Cup and so blanking in game week 29. After game week 26, going into game week 27, is when we will have it confirmed, of course, who is going to blank in 29, because that round of the cup will have been, and we will know who will be in that round. We'll know who's in the quarterfinals, so we will know who will blank. So at the moment, we have good percentage predictions, which we'll go through in a minute. Going into game week 27 is when we'll have game week 29 confirmed, which we'll talk about when it comes to chip strategy, isn't massively long. That only gives you your free transfer going into game week 27, 28, and 29 to try and fix your team for game week 29. That's only 3 free transfers. So there is a merit to free hit, and we'll talk about chip strategies in a moment. Game week 34 is the next one to talk about, and that is really interesting. That is predicted to be both a double and also a small blank game week. Of course, that's the semi-finals of the FA Cup. So if a team reaches the semi-finals of the FA Cup, so let's say Manchester City, Liverpool are both in the final or the semi-finals of the FA Cup, they can't double, right? Because they won't have the weekend. So they can't have a fixture at the weekend. That weekend game week 34 fixture will be removed. But there is the free midweek after, which is why game week 34 is a little bit confusing. Those fixtures can move out of game week 34 weekend and into the midweek afterwards. But it means that teams are out of the FA Cup might end up having 2 fixtures, right? They might play at the weekend and then have the fixture that's moved from game week 29 into game week 34 against some of those top teams added in. So the teams that are likely to progress far in the FA Cup, so let's say, as a bit of a narrative, Liverpool, Manchester City, potentially Chelsea, Manchester United, Newcastle, are unlikely to double in game week 34 unless they get knocked out of the cup. That then means the rest of the teams, potentially like Bournemouth, like other teams that are maybe not going to get so far in the cup, like Nottingham Forest, they might get their doubles put into game week 34. Game week 37, the final midweek free of the season, is where those teams that blank or have their fixture moved from game week 34, who are still in the semi-finals of the cup, are going to go into game week 37. Now, this is why this is really important. This means that the teams who double in game week 34 and game week 37 will almost categorically be different teams. There might be 1 or 2 teams, if we're fortunate, that double in both, depending on a very extreme set of circumstances. But generally speaking, game week 34 and game week 37 will have different doublers, which is different to previous seasons. So what this means is you can't necessarily play your wild card just before game week 34 and buy lots of players who double in 34 and double in game week 37 as well. It won't work. So we have to try and find a chip strategy that combats both game week 34 and game week 37, and of course game week 29 as well. So the simple way to put it is game week 29, game week 34, and game week 37, you in theory need 3 different lineups, 3 different sets of teams for those 3 weeks. But the bit of a roadmap for you before we go into the chip strategies: double in 25, blank in 26, 29, 34, mainly a double, but a few teams might blank, and game week 37 as a double. It's not categorical that this are the only weeks, because if you look at a team like Chelsea, that Chelsea Spurs fixture that's come out of game week 26, or the Bournemouth Luton fixture, in theory, that could go anywhere. There are midweeks that Liverpool can't have a double, Manchester City can't have a double because they're in Europe. But Bournemouth Luton, Chelsea Spurs are not in Europe. So there is the ability to have little double game weeks for some of those teams in other weeks. But generally, 25, 34 and 37 are going to be the big doubles of the season. Now, to look at game week 29 is the big one, and that's why we're starting to record now to looking at game week 29. We now have percentage chances, and a massive shout out, of course, to Ben Crellin, the man that is the planning, the spreadsheets. He is incredible. Him combined with James from Planet FPL are where I get all of my blank double chip strategy planning ideas from that go into these videos. This graphic is from Ben, but do also check out James from Planet FPL if you don't follow them already. So we already have 2 games confirmed. Fulham, Spurs, both teams are out of the cup. Burnley, Brentford, both teams are out of the cup. Great, 2 are already confirmed. We're guaranteed to get another one confirmed as well. We have Arsenal against Chelsea. Arsenal are out of the cup and Chelsea have the replay against Aston Villa. West Ham are out of the cup and Aston Villa have the replay against Chelsea in the cup. So one of those, whether Aston Villa lose or whether Chelsea lose, that game will go ahead in game week 29. So that will give us 3 confirmed fixtures. We're also almost guaranteed to get a 4th fixture. If we assume that Manchester City are going to win at home against Luton, which most of us probably do, That means Manchester United against Nottingham Forest, who have drawn each other in the cup. Both their opponents, in theory, would be out. And Sheffield United, who are already out. And then Luton, who are expecting to lose to Manchester City. That will leave either Manchester United versus Sheffield United to go ahead in game week 29 or Luton versus Nottingham Forest to go ahead in game week 29. However, because of the way the FA Cup was drawn this time, not many of the top teams drew against each other. They were kept apart. We're expecting pretty much all the other games to result in a blank. Now, there's always a chance. It's the FA Cup. It's the magic of the cup. Things happen, right? Bournemouth play against Leicester. Bournemouth could lose. And then the other one is Wolves. They're at home to Brighton, right? If Bournemouth and Wolves both lose their home ties, then yes, that fixture might go on. Yes, Liverpool might lose in their cup against Watford or Southampton. But generally speaking, we are predicting there to be 4 fixtures go ahead in game week 29. The 2 we've got confirmed, one of the Chelsea or Aston Villa fixtures, and then one of the Nottingham Forest or Manchester United fixtures in game week 29. So 4 fixtures with players generally that we don't massively want to invest in does make it a little bit difficult to plan for. So, looking at chip strategies, I've got, in theory, 5 chip strategies and then a couple of others depending on if you've already played chips, just to talk you through. The first one, option A. Wildcard in game week 27, you free hit in game week 29, and then you bench boost in either 34 or 37. Basically, this means if you're going to play your wildcard before game week 29, you almost have to play your free hit that week. Those of us who are not playing a free hit in game week 29 are not going to have players in their teams that week that they're going to want to hold for the rest of the season. So if you are wildcarding now, wildcarding in 25, wildcarding 26, wildcarding 27, you'll pretty much have to free hit in game week 29, and then you'll play your bench boost in game week 34 or game week 37. That works all right. It allows you to build really well for game week 25. The double, you can do what you need to get past game week 26 and then wildcard in game week 27. It's worth mentioning that none of these chip strategies include when to play the triple captain. The triple captain is the chip that needs the least planning. You can play it as soon as there is a double. The majority of us will play it in game week 25 on either Mo Salah or on Erling Haaland. That's when it's going to go. You could play it later, but the majority of us will go in that week. But don't plan your chip strategy around when you're going to play your triple captain. Plan your other chips and let your triple captain just fall into place where it does. The next up is if you play your free hit in either 25 or 26. There is reasoning for it. It allows you to get more doublers whether you play in 25, but if you play in 26, of course you can bring in lots of those doublers into your team in game week 25 and then free hit in 26 and not worry that like Liverpool, for example, Chelsea, for example, they blank in game week 26. You would then wildcard in game week 30 and then you'd bench boost in either game week 34 or game week 37. And triple captain, again, will just fall where it falls best with this chip strategy. Now, it doesn't have to be a game week 30 wildcard. It could be game week 30, 31, 32, 33. But generally speaking, you would wildcard pretty soon after a big blank. So you're not just left every week with lots of players from the likes of Burnley, Fulham, Brentford, who you might not want to hold long term. Option C, this is actually playing your bench boost earlier. And you might not have thought about it, but if you look at your team in game week 25, a lot of us might suddenly have quite a strong bench in game week 25. The bench boost isn't as simple as it was in previous seasons. There's not going to be one massive double game week where every team doubles, so you can have a really strong bench and play your bench boost. So if you get to game week 25 and it looks really strong and you don't want to play a triple captain, I would consider playing a chip and playing your bench boost in game week 25. You would then dead end your team into game week 29. So you just use transfers to get into game week 26 and then into 29 for the blank and wildcard soon after and bench boost in the 2 big doubles in 34 or 37. The next 2 are my favorite 2 chip strategies. These are the 2 that I'm personally deciding between option D and option E. Option D is to not use any chip until game week 29 and free hit in that week and completely forget about it. Yes, you might not be bringing in players on your free hit that you massively want. But what it means is my transfers before, while everyone who's not free hitting in game week 29 can use all their transfers before to bring in players from Brentford, to bring in players from Burnley, other players that have a fixture that week, whereas I can completely forget about it and actually buy players that I want to buy in my team. You would build your team to go into that double in game week 34, wildcard straight after, being ready to bench boost in game week 37 with your wildcard just a few weeks earlier. The benefit of this is you wildcard very soon to your point of bench boost. The risk with wildcarding early and bench boosting late after 6 or 7 weeks is that you bring in players on your wildcard who then get injured before they get to the bench boost, and you're suddenly left with a bench with not enough players. Option E, this is probably the most popular. Get through game week 25, 26, 29 without using any chips, maybe a triple captain, wildcard in game week 30 or 31, then free hit in game week 34 because you might have some blanks, some doubles which won't be confirmed massively in advance, so you can just not worry about that, and bench boost in the biggest double in game week 37. Those are the two that I'm eyeing up. It's just whether I think I need to play my free hit in game week 34 or whether it's going to be needed in game week 29. The final two is if you've used your free hit or if you've used your wild card. If you've used your free hit, dead ending into game week 29 is the best strategy. Wild card out of game week 29, so game week 30, and then play your bench boost later. And the other one is if you've used your wild card, as I said with option A, if you've used your wild card already, free hit game week 29 is definitely the best strategy. Now, it might not necessarily seem clear right now, and to me, my tip strategy is not decided between D and E. I am waiting until the FA Cup replays are out of the way to know if I have players like Saka, like Gabriel, like Palmer. Is that Chelsea versus Arsenal game going to go ahead in game week 29? If that gets removed and Chelsea are going to blank in game week 29, then suddenly I might feel like I need to free hit that week. There are things that will develop over the next few weeks that will change your chip strategy. So you don't need to be sat there at the end of this video thinking, I know I'm going to do A, B, C, D, or E. But you should have a pretty good idea on what will impact it and maybe a couple of options that you want to go with. I know there will be questions. Let me know in the comment section down below your questions. Let me know if it was simple and easy enough to understand. All of the graphics I will be posting over on Twitter, so do let me know if you want a copy of them. This is the update. Of course, there'll be updates as we get closer to the doubles, closer to the blanks, free hit teams when we get to those weeks, wildcard teams when we get to the weeks that you should play your wildcard. All of it is here, your one-stop shop, hopefully, for everything FPL between now and the end of the season. Thank you so much for watching. Drop any questions you have in the comment section down below. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back again very soon.